Hey guys, Jack on Wrist back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to do a full review of the Starking AM0171. Now if you watched my last video, you would have seen that it was an unboxing and initial impressions of this particular watch, and after a few days on wrist, I'm prepared to now make the full review with detailed specifications and pros and cons in my personal opinion. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So here's the watch in question. If you saw my initial unboxing and impressions, you would have already seen this watch. But basically in today's video, like I said in the intro, I'm just going to run down the specifications, tell you pretty much everything you need to know about it, and then go over some of the pros and cons, some of the reasons why you may either buy this watch or pass on it. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start with one of the bigger things with this watch that really helps the value, and that is the sapphire crystal. I've not really been able to actually test it, but I've seen other people test it, and it seems to be legitimate sapphire crystal on the dial here. That is something you're not going to find for pretty much under $100 anywhere other than China. And this is a Chinese watch, and I also will leave a link in the description below. I bought this for $65 on Amazon. But, you know, if you want to talk about Seiko or Orient or all these, you know, lower priced brands or brands with lower price brackets, and, you know, you're not going to get a sapphire crystal for this amount of money, for 65 bucks. So that's one thing that just immediately stands out to pretty much everybody when you're looking at the specifications of this watch. That's pretty crazy. Looking at the dial, obviously it's more of a silvery sunburst effect dial with a interesting placement of the date window between the 4 and the 5. Looks really nice. It's a pretty elegant looking watch overall. Moving to the back, we have a display case back displaying the Miyota 8215, I believe. I believe that's the right movement. It definitely is a little loud, and it doesn't keep the greatest time ever, but it is going to be sort of your entry-level automatic movement. It also does not actually hack. If you can see here, whoops, try to pull it out here. I'm pulling it out to the second position, and it keeps ticking, which isn't the biggest deal ever, but it does hand whine, if you can hear. And overall, it's a decent movement. I'd say it's keeping between plus 10 and plus 15 seconds a day, which isn't really the greatest thing ever, but, you know, is what it is. I'm not wearing this every single day. And like I said, it's just an entry-level movement, automatic movement. And if you are someone who's looking at your first automatic or just wants to get something a little interesting, you know, this is the way that you could go. In terms of the construction of the actual watch, stainless steel case, stainless steel crown with actually the logo right there, same as on the dial. And you have stainless steel links and solid end links at that, and solid links. So a very, you know, solid bracelet, you know, solid feeling watch, and it's a little heavier. You can definitely feel the heft of this one. And it does have a butterfly clasp, which is pretty standard for Chinese watches. This is really the go-to. It's not the worst thing ever. It gets the job done, but it definitely has some drawbacks, which I'll mention in the cons section. 40 millimeter case, 20 millimeter lug to lug. This is a really great watch to put on straps. It is just it's just such a neutral, nice looking watch that you could put this on pretty much anything. Black leather, tan, brown. You know, you could really just play around with this, and you could probably have a good time putting this on different things and seeing how it looks, because it'll probably look good on a lot of different things. So to sum up the specifications, it's value for money on paper. You know, you're definitely getting a lot of bang for a buck. Stainless steel construction, solid links, solid end links, sapphire crystal, and an entry-level automatic movement. You know, this is not some quartz watch with you know, a crappy bracelet. For 65 bucks, you're definitely getting some good value there. So moving on to the pros of this watch, it's pretty much self-explanatory. As I mentioned, you know, it's $65. And it's an automatic watch with pretty decent construction. You know, it's pretty easy to sort of see that. Sapphire crystal, these are things you're not going to get, like I said, from Seiko, from Orient, at the same price point. You know, if you're paying 90 bucks for a Seiko 5, you're getting hollow end links, folded over metal links, acrylic crystal, or rather hardlex crystal from Seiko. And, you know, you might get a slightly better movement or a very similar movement, but, you know, value for money, you're going to get something just, you know, a notch above with this. Now, talking about the cons, it isn't the biggest list ever, but there are definitely some things I'd like to mention. The first thing, just looking at the dial here, I'm not the biggest fan of the between the 4 and 5 placement of the date window. That is just me. This may not bother other people, but it's just weirdly close to the automatic text near the 6. It isn't really parallel to the other text on the watch. Personally, I'd probably prefer this to be at the 3 o'clock or next to 3 o'clock. Again, not the biggest deal ever. I do like that there is a date window because this could be seen as a pretty nice daily watch, but you know, just something to keep in mind. It may eventually start to annoy you. I know it has started annoying me a little bit. Next with the bracelet, and before I talk about the bracelet here, just keep in mind, obviously, if you were to take this off the bracelet, which I think would work really well for this watch, go for it. That's going to probably solve a lot of the problems I'm about to mention. But just getting started with that, you know, on paper, it's solid end link and solid link bracelet. And I'm not insinuating this is anywhere near a Rolex bracelet, but those are the same specifications as a Rolex watch, you know, solid end links, solid links. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean the quality is 100% there just because it's the same terms. And you can tell it's definitely heavier, but it definitely just feels a little cheap. You can hear that right there. You know, something about it, just the way it articulates, the way it feels, the way it kind of moves around, rattles around. It just doesn't feel like it's just the greatest quality ever. You know, it doesn't feel that amazing. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments might make fun of me for comparing it to a Rolex, and I'm by no means am I comparing it to a Rolex, but I'm just saying many expensive watches have those same key phrases of solid end links, solid links, and that doesn't necessarily translate to quality every single time. You know, execution is a huge deal. So that's really what I meant by that comparison. Also with the bracelet, like I mentioned earlier, the butterfly clasp, it's decent, it works, it gets the job done, snaps into place. But, you know, in terms of micro adjustment, you have 0. So either you're going to wear this watch a little tight, a little loose, or maybe you're lucky and it fits your wrist perfectly, but you just never really know till you actually get on wrist. I know personally for me, it wears pretty well. I'll put it on here, but it definitely is a little loose because it's either a little loose for me or it's a little tight and I just have to pick one. And for me, I'm just going to go with a little looser. This is my 6.5 inch wrist here. I'd say it wears pretty well. I think this will look pretty good in any size wrist. I'm 6.5, a little bit smaller, but the lug size is, it's, you know, the lug to lug, I should say, is decent enough to wear on pretty much any size wrist. It fits a smaller wrist, but it's still a 40mm case, so it fits pretty well for, I'd say, most people. And obviously, if you have an even smaller wrist than mine, I would just say pop it on a leather strap of some kind, and the lug to lug will shrink even more because it definitely does have you know, a bigger or slightly bigger lug to lug when you factor in the bracelet. And the final thing, like I mentioned earlier, is that the movement is just a little noisy. Sometimes you can give it a spin. You know, it's not every single time, but you know, eventually you might hear it just kind of spinning away and gets a little annoying, but not the biggest deal ever, just something to keep in mind. Again, it's just going to sort of be a telltale sign that it isn't the, you know, the highest quality watch ever. But overall, it is a solid watch, and I'm not trying to nitpick it like crazy, but just some of the things you want to maybe keep in mind when looking at this watch. So that's it. That's the review of the Starking AM0171. Overall, how do I like it? Well, I'll say for $65, you pretty much can't beat the value for money on paper. The execution is decent, it's okay, but you're definitely getting a lot of specifications for the money. And for 65 bucks, this pretty much beats up anything in the price range, upwards of $100 from, like I said, brands like Seiko, or anything really. I mean, you know, you're getting quartz watches at this price point, so to get an automatic watch, sapphire crystal, and a decent stainless steel watch in terms of construction, you're pretty much a winner. So, like I said, some little things to nitpick here and there, but value for money is just ridiculous. And I would say go for it if you want either your first automatic watch or just something, like I said, you can beat around and feel confident in, something that's hefty with that sapphire crystal. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. Also check out my Instagram @JackOnWrist for photos of all my watches, including this new Starking. And like I said, that's it. So thank you, and please subscribe.